Welcome to the NRT Now podcast, giving you the latest in Christian music news, topics, and artist interviews directly from the largest Christian music site online, newreleasetoday.com. Now, here's your host, Jake.
Hey guys, it's been a while since we've done a Next Big Thing episode, so I figured what better time to do it than now. So we have Tori Harper joining us. Hey, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So I've seen a lot of Tori Harper stuff come out. We just wanted to spend a little bit of time here and get to know Tori. Tell us a little bit about your story and just who Tori Harper is.
Yeah, so I grew up in Franklin, Tennessee, which is a little town just 10 minutes outside of Nashville, and grew up in a Christian home in the Bible Belt of the South. But I never really took my faith on as my own. I believed in God. I would definitely tell people, I was a Christian, but I didn't really know God very personally. I wanted to, but I didn't know how. I kind of grew up that way. I got a little bit older, and I was probably about 11 when I started writing songs. I had always been doing creative things, my whole life. I'd been dancing or doing musicals or trying to come up with a language, and that never worked. When I was 11, my parents sent me to a songwriting camp, and that impacted me in, I think, more ways than I've really realized. The obvious one is that I write songs now. I loved it so much that ever since that camp, I started writing like every day, and I loved it. The interesting thing is, like, I tell people that it took till I was in high school and saw all the problems in the world to really understand the impact of music. But I think even back when I was 11, I think God was showing me the impact that music had, because I still remember to this day at that songwriting camp, it was just probably like, 10 kids maybe. And we were in this lady's basement, but she would have these worship sessions every day. And I will never forget just like all of us just sitting around in this. It was a very dark room. She had like fake candles, and we were singing Jesus Messiah by Chris Tomlin. And it was just so beautiful, and I will never forget that. And I think there's just something so special about music that gives us such a deep connection to God. And obviously there's many ways to connect to God. I'm definitely not saying that's the only one, but I think there's something really special about music. So that's kind of like how I got started, where I came from. And so definitely not the whole story, but
Some of the things that I've seen from Tori Harper coming through Instagram is not only are you a musician, but you are now a baker. You are now Master Chef Tori Harper.
well, we can hope, right? Me and my dad have been making bread, and that sounds a lot more impressive than it actually is. We basically just found the most easy recipe you could possibly find. We actually failed like the first 5 times, even with the easiest recipe. But it's been fun, and now that we actually have the recipe down, it's nice to have like fresh bread. Even if it is really simple, it's a bonding experience. So
You've baked more bread than I have, so I'm still giving you the Master Baker title because
oh my gosh,
more than I did. So.
You know what I tried just yesterday? I was in a songwriting session with a couple of people that I love, and Tommy, who's one of the writers there, we were at his house, and his wife had made these Swedish cinnamon rolls.
Ooh.
And they were so good because she's from Sweden, and they're the best things I've ever eaten.
I'm a little late for lunch as we're recording this here. And this
Oh
is
no!
Not helping.
Oh no! I'm so sorry.
No, that sounds.
Should I go on to tell you about the macaroons I made then?
We may as well at this point.
Oh man! Oh, they turned out horrible.
Man, I was expecting like this is what I got going, and now that I got it down, like the macaroons turned out amazing, but
Not at all. Yeah, they started to look good, and then when I got them out, four of them were burned. Not the like other 12 of them or however many we had. Four of them were burned. The rest of them were not burned. And then the rest of them were all kind of like cracked and caved in on each other. They tasted great,
Man.
but yeah,
Yeah. I'll
it was
leave the
fun though.
baking to you. Like, give me a grill, we're good. But baking, I'll pass.
Hey, I'm
I'll leave
down
that.
for some good barbecue.
Yeah.
That's a skill.
Our gas grill had issues. The grates need replaced. It's just one of those things that happens. And so we've been using our charcoal so much more lately, just
Oh
because I've
wow.
been too lazy to get the other stuff. So we've just been using the charcoal, and oh man, I'm kind of hooked now. Like, I haven't grilled in a couple of weeks, and it's kind of bugging me a little bit, and I think it's bugging my wife a bit too.
Oh my gosh.
And just that charcoal, I've just really been discovering that love for good charcoal grilled, whatever it is.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
This is still not helping lunch, but
Yeah, I was just about to say maybe we should talk about
yeah.
something else.
So you released a new album here recently called
Mm.
Selah, which is very confusing because I did not see a song on there called Selah. So math didn't work well for me on that one.
Yeah, I've had a few people ask about that. And basically, it's funny, and this is something I actually haven't really talked about much, but from the start, like before I even knew I was going to make an EP, I was kind of still coming out of like this weird season I'd been in, and I didn't know what to do at all. I had no vision for what I wanted to do next with music, and then all of a sudden I just felt God like speak to me and just say like, you should do an EP called Selah. And yeah, it just like hit me one day. And so I was like, okay. And the more I thought about it, the more I like just fell in love with the whole concept, because the word Selah is found in the Psalms, and nobody's 100% sure what it means, but it's found in between the stanzas. And so a lot of people believe that it's the musical term for rest. I've explained to people, as a musician and a singer, for me, that space to rest is also a space to breathe, a space to gear up for the next verse, a space to kind of recuperate from the previous one. And so I just felt like that was so perfectly descriptive of what I felt like I was going through in that season, where God was showing me how to rest and to breathe and to recuperate, to heal, and also just like breathing in his breath, because mine just doesn't quite it's not quite enough, but his breath of life kind of brings a whole new strength to any season. So I wanted to call it Selah because I felt like that encompassed it all. And also, I felt like I was supposed to.
See, I had no idea what that meant. I've seen it a few times here and there, and I had absolutely no idea what that meant. And I learned something new today.
Awesome.
I feel like that's one of those like biblical words that when you just throw out a random big word and you sound all smart and everything. Like, I feel like Selah is a good word in that category.
That's so funny. I didn't even realize until we started talking about this that people didn't really know a lot about what Selah was and where it was in the Bible and like what it meant and everything. Because being in Music City, I feel like I've heard it quite a bit, because all the musicians, they nerd out over it because it's this musical thing in the Bible. But I think it's really cool that I am getting the opportunity to share that with other people now.
Yeah, that's so cool. Like I said, I love music. I play music. I'm a guitar player and all that. But that's not, I don't like live the music thing every, day to day, like a
Mm,
career musician or anything like that. So,
mm.
I don't sit and talk about those terms on a day to day basis. And I'm even lost on the Nashville numbering system. Like, I know I need to learn that, but I'm still so lost on that. So it's
Let me encourage you. It's not as overwhelming as you think it is.
yeah,
It's not.
it's just one of those things I just need to sit down and learn instead of hunting down the right chord chart.
It looks a lot scarier than it is.
I should have done that during the quarantine here while I had the time, but yeah, I spent the time messing with my pedal board instead of learning
Hey,
that stuff.
that's nothing to be scoffed at because like you're expressing yourself creatively with your pedal board. That's art, Some art is more mathematical than other art, but that doesn't discount any form of art really.
I guess one of the things that as a musician, as a guitar player and stuff, just the theory behind it, I think that gets kind of downplayed because, once you learn the chords and all that, you can play and you can get on worship team and all that kind of stuff. But
Absolutely. And it's funny you bring that up because I actually have been thinking a lot about that. And I have been taking lessons again to learn more about guitar theory so I can improve that skill.
that's one of the things that I know I'm weakest of. And like I said, I should have used the quarantine for a little bit more of that. I actually signed up for a music theory. It's from a YouTube guy. He has a music theory class, and it's like $5 a month. I'm like, sign me up.
Oh, cool. That's
So
awesome.
I still haven't logged in yet. So I
Well,
should have been using that time better, but yikes.
I think everyone feels that way a little bit. I think we were all just trying to figure out how life is supposed to be. And I don't think anyone should feel too bad about just doing things that they love.
I think you hit that. Like, I haven't quite figured out what it's supposed to be. And I mean, there's also been a sense of temporary, if we use
Yeah.
Selah, like it's kind of been more like a pause, been more like a Selah.
Yeah, no, you're
So,
absolutely right.
so I was trying to use that big word again. The Selah word sounds smart. It didn't work. But
Oh, no, it worked. I hadn't thought about it that way. But I think that is so true of like right now. I think that's probably a part of the reason why people haven't been doing more during this season is because we don't know when it's going to end and we keep thinking that it's like it's temporary, it's a pause, we're just pausing for a second, then we're going to get back to life. So I think kind of that disassociation with like, oh, this isn't normal life, so we're not doing normal life things right now. But yeah, I think it is a pause.
yes, one that I'm hoping ends sooner than later, but we're looking forward to seeing everybody back out on the road. And man, I'm missing concerts terribly. I say this almost every episode, but I'm missing that terribly.
I love concerts so much. I don't get to go to nearly enough of them, but I love it so much. And I don't know if it looks cheesy or whatever of me just being out in the crowd in front of people I know, but like I just love the art of it. It is such an art form. And I love when people really put effort into that.
I've been weird about this for quite a while, but just concert drums. There's something different
Mm,
about live concert drums as opposed to hearing, I mean, a very well mixed and very well produced song on like Spotify or whatever, but there's just something different about
mm,
it being live and at a concert and in a huge room with a bunch of speakers and the whole thing. There's just something different about it.
there's an energy to it because the whole band is like just in sync and like feeling the song. Yeah, it's special for sure.
Just the way the kick just kind of resonates through the room with
Mm,
the way the boom just kind of fills the whole atmosphere and stuff, and it's just
yeah.
so cool.
You more than just hear the music, you feel the music.
Yep. And so as we talk a little bit about your album Selah, it's a little bit of a Taylor Swift story. No, not that bad. I'm not putting that on you. No. But it's derived from the rough spot where you were engaged and you had
Mm,
to walk through that time where
mm,
you had to call it off and just all the junk that goes through that whole thing.
yeah.
Talk a little bit about that and writing the album, the EP through those emotions and stuff.
Yeah. I think Yeah, that season was tough. It was really, really hard. I tell a lot of people it was one of the hardest things I had to do. The engagement, it just was becoming really toxic, and I wasn't really in a place where I could see that, but God just kind of kept speaking to me and kind of just gently urging me, to break things off. I ignored it at first, but I got to a point where I couldn't ignore it because God is the most important thing to me, and I'm not gonna go against what He's saying. So I broke it off, and it was very difficult to do. Looking back now, it was a really good thing, and God is definitely using it. I mean, now I have these songs that, yes, they came from like hurt and pain and even suffering, but now hopefully they can speak to people now going through other things. And maybe my experience with going through hurt and having questions and not knowing why God asked me to do this and not knowing what the future was going to look like, and him showing up and him being with me and him being so so kind. Maybe that story can actually have a purpose now, because now other people can hear that, hopefully, and see that God is with them. And so that was really my hope for this whole EP, is to not gloss over how difficult things were, because I want the people that are also feeling that way to understand that even in what you feel could be the most difficult time of your life, when you're not sure if you have the strength to get through what you're going through, God is there with you, and he will be there when that last ounce of strength you have dries up. He's there to carry you and to be with you and to cry next to you. And so, yeah.
Relationships are tough to start with, and
Mm.
especially you being a youngin. I vaguely remember those days. They seem to be getting farther and farther away. But especially when you're trying to figure your way out in the world as well, and it's tough to decipher, what's completing me. Is God completing me, and this relationship is a piece of that, or am I using this relationship to complete me? And that's not a healthy place either.
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually kind of where one of those songs came from, Resurrect. I start off the verse by saying, there's so many places I run, but none of them are good enough to satisfy. And that was just kind of coming from that place where I was like, after I'd been through this whole ordeal, I began to try and just like distract myself in an unhealthy way and just fill up that void so I wouldn't have to think about it anymore. But the truth is like, at the end of the day, I'm not searching just for like temporary happiness. What my soul is wanting is that fulfillment from the Lord. Those resources to try and fill up that void, they dry up. They don't stick around, because happiness, that's not permanent.
The other thing too is relationships, no matter what, take work. Friendships, romantic relationships, parents,
Absolutely.
no matter what it is, good relationships just take a lot of work.
They
And
do.
the hard thing is drawing that line, whether it's worth fighting for and I need to push and get through this and work it out, or if it's not worth pursuing that relationship. And that's
Mm.
really any relationship, friendships and all that. I mean, it's tough to get to that point when you just got to distance yourself from friend, or and the
Mm.
unfortunate if it's parents or whatever. But I mean, that's a
Mm.
super hard line to draw. That's really where that godly wisdom comes in, of knowing where that line is and prayerfully finding that line.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, even the best relationships take work. Don't get me wrong, they're awesome. I feel like I hear so many people talk about how hard and how awful, or how much of a struggle these relationships are, and I feel like sometimes that can be really discouraging to people. But I do want to encourage people that it's worth it. That hard work and that struggle, like, people do it because it's worth it, because people are the best part of life. And if you find something, you find people to share with, your life, then hold on to that. You want to hold on to that. So,
Yeah, absolutely. The best relationships that I've had are some of the ones that have taken the most work sometimes. And it's just getting through and working through, and at the end of the day, you have that shared experience and kind of that. It's kind of a shared victory as you've walked through stuff.
yeah, absolutely.
As a young lady, because it's been a long while since I've been a young lady. Wait, no, that's never happened. As you're walking through this and writing this album and all that, what did you learn about relationships that maybe if there's a young lady that's listening to this episode that needs that encouragement, what did you learn through that process?
I learned a lot. I learned that just because someone is nice doesn't mean they're right for you. I feel like when I was younger, I just saw that pool of possibilities as something really like small, and like I didn't think that like there ever would really be a good fit, like so I was just kind of taking what I could get. But I think as you get older, guys get more mature. So,
Well, about that.
well,
Just don't ask my wife.
sometimes.
Don't ask. No, I'm kidding.
And that doesn't mean they become less fun. It just means they understand how relationships work better. And I feel like as a young woman, that's like really frustrating to hear sometimes, because you're like, oh, I have to wait. Like, no, like I want something now. But it's worth it. It's worth it to wait. And I would say, like, don't stress out too much about it. Above all, just make sure God is the most important thing in your life, because God knows the desires of your heart, and He doesn't think it's bad for you to be with someone. If you have the desire to be with somebody, He will bring that right person to you. When you put God first, all the other issues that you could be having in your relationship, they kind of just work out. Not all the time. It takes work,
Yeah.
definitely, but you find yourself being less selfish and more compassionate towards the person that you're with, and it also just like it brings joy to the relationship, honestly. There's just this joy, this peace that comes with having God at the center of your relationship. I think this is the best piece of advice that I heard when I was younger, is just make sure whoever you're with, they're pushing you towards God. The advice I heard, they said, whoever you're with, they're either pushing you towards God or away from God. And it doesn't matter if it's so minimally that you don't notice, it is happening. And you have to figure out which it is. So, obviously, not everyone's perfect.
Yeah.
And definitely a guy will not save you. You have to find out who you are before you can really know what you want in a relationship. But also sometimes I discovered it took being in a relationship to know who I was, because I tried to become something else for the person that I was with. And that made me realize, okay, this isn't me. But I would just encourage you, like, find out random things about yourself that you really like, and don't just brush that off. Really hang on to that and be like, this is a part of who I am. Like, I really like limes, and that's random and that's weird, but that's a part of who I am. That's something that I like. All those little things, they add up to who you are as a person. And so if too many of those things don't line up with who you're with, then it might not be as good. Obviously, you're going to have some differences. You probably like different movies, or that's normal. Maybe the person doesn't like limes, but do stuff you both enjoy. That's special. So you want to have some things in common. I think that's my advice, is like, I think too many people just go for someone because they can. And I think that I would just tell young girls to not be afraid to wait for something that is better suited to them, that has more stuff in common with them.
I love it. I've never thought of it that way about finding all the little things and the little quirky things.
Mm.
Actually, for me, being married long enough, if I dig too much into that, it gets more be like, why did she agree to marry me in the first place? Like the
Oh
more
my
I dig down
gosh.
that route, that might be a little dangerous at this point. But
Well, the other important thing is, even if those things are not things you have in common, it needs to be something that the person looks at you and they go, "Oh, I love that she loves limes. That's so weird. But I love that. Like, I don't understand it, but I love that she is like that." You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
you got to appreciate each other.
as we're kind of wrapping up, I have two questions. First,
Mm.
what songs are in the queue that you've written during this time, and the other is what's coming through the Harper Kitchen next.
So, yeah, I am working on some songs right now. I wrote one yesterday that I'm really excited about, and I've known for a while that I want to do a Selah Part 2, which is kind of like just a follow-up EP to, like, the first one is focusing more on the pain and the struggle. I kind of want the second one to be more of the healing and looking back kind of perspective of it. So I'm really excited to kind of share that with people. And it's just crazy how like all of this has been just so the Lord. Like I sat down to try and think of a song idea yesterday, and it felt like God just sang something out of me, and it's like I didn't even really write it. And obviously I took that to my friends to write with them, but like, yeah, I'm really excited to see what God does. I've already heard some really amazing testimonies from people who have listened to Selah and just been moved by it. So I'm really excited to see what God does.
Awesome. And so, what's coming out of the Harper Kitchen? Be
Oh, the literal kitchen.
yes, like the
Oh,
baking. Like
I
what's
thought you meant
coming
like the
next?
proverbial like creative kitchen. Okay.
No, I'm done
Um
with the. I'm done with that. Let's.
Oh my gosh.
What's the word I'm looking for? I'm done with the
Food.
metaphorical. We'll done with the deep stuff. What's coming out of the literal
All right.
Harper Kitchen?
Well, I want to work on getting the macaroons to actually be good. So I'll probably be practicing that. I'm definitely going to ask Tommy for his cinnamon roll recipe because that was so good. So that's definitely going to be something I try to make. Aside from that, I'm not really sure. I'm sure something, something I can eat, hopefully.
Well, what I want to see come out is the hotel room baker's guide. So as you get back on the
Oh,
road, get back to live shows and all that, the baking skills go to the hotel room.
that's a really good idea, actually. A cookbook for stuff you can make while you're traveling. That's a really good idea. I like that. I might do that.
Random ideas from a
Yeah.
podcast.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, thanks for hanging out with us for a while, Tori.
Yeah, thanks for having me on this podcast. It's awesome.